Now, you guys may have seen the movie, but the right talent can be found really anywhere. And that's why it's often right in front of you. So if we think about the right talent, the movie that was out there talked about Katherine Johnson. Katherine Johnson started, it's the movie Hidden Figures, started as just a really smart kid, basically a genius in West Virginia, who got a very rare chance to enter West Virginia University. They allowed 3 people, 3 minority students, to come into West Virginia University. And then one of those people happened to recognize how good Katherine was and invited her to a special program. And that program somebody saw her at that program and invited her to NASA. And then NASA had her operating as a human computer. This is back when people didn't trust that computers can actually do mathematics correctly. And it was actually John Glenn, one of our first astronauts, who said, I'm not going to go into orbit based on the calculation of some box. I'm going to only go into orbit if she says that those calculations are correct. And so John Glenn gave Katherine Johnson a chance to become important at NASA. And then we all know that she then became one of the key people that enabled us to get to the moon. It's a pretty incredible story. That was a lot of happenstance. But it also shows you the power of potential. Now that's an example of somebody who people saw, right? Her potential was very obvious. She was a genius. But what if it's not so easy to see? Sometimes talent is actually really hard to see. And so this becomes a job of recruiters and hiring managers to think about how do we find talent that's out there, right? That purple squirrel, that diamond in the rough. And so when you think about recruiters, we have in our country one version of recruiters that are very highly compensated because they're hiring people that get paid a lot of money. And those are NFL scouts, right? The National Football League every year has to decide who to bring into the league. And every team has to decide which players to bring in. So this is a little bit of a cautionary tale about machine learning. Because as some of us talked about yesterday, machine learning is based on the data that you give it. And the data that you give it is often the data that shows you the past. It's what already happened. And so the machine interprets that data to try to make predictions about future data. So in football, they actually use data. And there are scouts that go out and identify potential talent. So this is a scouting report. I'll just read the beginning. A scouting report on a prospect to be a quarterback. Poor build, very skinny and narrow, ended the 99 season weighing 195 pounds, and still looks like a rail in 2011. Okay, not exactly a resounding endorsement for this person. So this guy was barely going to make the draft based on that scouting report. Can't drive the ball down the field and doesn't throw a really tight spiral. Okay, these are kind of basic things. But we're in a world of metrics, right? We don't care about subjective opinion. We're going to base our decisions on metrics. Well, the NFL is great with metrics. They look at a few different things that really are determinative of how people do, right? The 40-yard dash, how fast do you do it? You do it sub 4 seconds? This guy did it in 5.3 seconds. I think you can walk faster. Vertical leap, 24.5 inches. This guy's definitely not making the NBA. Lateral, 7.2 seconds. This is not good. In fact, this is the 6th worst in the history of keeping track of these metrics. Literally 6th worst. So if you ask the machine to tell you, should you hire this guy, she would tell you, absolutely not, no chance. Makes no sense. The Wonderlic, which actually came from the Navy, is a particular score. Even that said, no chance. This guy's not the right guy. Well, how wrong are they? That's Tom Brady. Tom Brady, the literally winningest quarterback in the history of the NFL. So beware of the data you listen to. Sometimes you do have to go with your gut. In fact, one of the top coaches was asked, how'd you miss this guy? This guy was drafted in like the second to last round. He was a third, fourth string quarterback. That's what he said. We didn't open up his chest and look at his heart. We didn't look at that. I don't know anybody that did. What kind of spine he had, and resiliency, and all the things that are making him really great right now. Just think about that for a second. These things are important. We sometimes call this gut instinct, right? Culture fit, grit, perseverance. How do these people fit in our organization? Sometimes you got to go with your gut because potential is not always super apparent. But that's not the only aspect of potential. Sometimes potential is there, and maybe the metrics are fine, but it needs to be nurtured. So, as a fan, I can't sit here talking about the Patriots as somebody who lives in LA without talking about our boys. So if you think about nurturing, and we stay on the football analogy, who is the most important person on the team to do that nurturing, right? Who's really in charge? Is it the GM? Not really. It's the coach. It's the head coach. Right? That's the person that's going to pull the potential out of the person. Because management does matter. It makes a difference. And most of you work in the human resources business. You know management matters. Well, we have a quarterback in LA. And in 2016, he was widely panned as one of the worst quarterbacks ever. He was a top draft pick, and people said the Rams were crazy. This kid had no idea what he was doing. He was terrible. 4-12 season, and they had a coach that had been a coach for a long time. The kid was hopeless. But the general manager actually didn't believe that. And the general manager said, no, our problem isn't the team, it's the coach. We need a better manager. We need somebody better to nurture these people. So they brought in a new coach. Within 1 year, he was in the Pro Bowl. 1 year of a new manager, mentoring him, nurturing him. And now, Shawn Mcveigh and Jared Goff, one of the best pairs out there. They have that connection. The manager helped pull the potential out of the employee, and they went from being super bad to playing in the Super Bowl. Next year we'll win.